Congratulations are definitely in order. Yesterday was a mammoth first day on this course, and you got through it, you set up your environment, and we're off to the races. So, as a recap, what you can now do is use Ollama to run models locally. You can call OpenAI's API to run a frontier model. You understand, at least at a high level, the difference between a system and a user prompt, and you've built a summarization use case, which is an important commercial application. Today, we're going to talk a bit about what are the steps to get to being an LLM engineer, set you up for success, and then talk more about frontier models. That is the plan. Now, let me start by just emphasizing that this course, this 8-week course, is a practical course first and foremost. We're going to cover theory, we're going to cover the foundational information that you need, but we're always going to do it in a practical context. I'm a big believer in the best way to learn is by doing, and that's what we'll be actually doing. We're going to be putting it to good use. We're going to be building commercial projects as we go. And I'll often be asking you to try and think about how you could apply what you've learned to your day job and try and build little prototypes to bring that to life. So that is the flavor of the course. There are 3 different aspects to LLM engineering that you'll be picking up as we go. The first of them is just understanding the models that are out there, the wide range of different types of LLM and what they're capable of, whether we're talking about open source versions, the closed source paid versions, ones that are multimodal that can generate images or audio, the different architectures of LLMs, and importantly, how you pick which LLM you should be working with in the first place. We'll be looking at all of the tools of the trade, things like the ubiquitous Hugging Face, the super impressive glue code in LangChain, the fabulous Gradio that you will see I'm a big fan of, weights and biases, super helpful, and then modal for deploying it to production. And we'll be looking at techniques, different ways that you can apply the field of Gen AI to solve business problems, from using APIs, RAG, which is such a hot topic, fine-tuning, and then at the end, a full agentic AI solution. The idea of this course is that I've planned it so that it will apply almost no matter what your level of experience. You may find initially that some of the first few weeks are too simplistic for you, or the first few days at least. And there I would say, hang in there. Use it as a way to just sort of reinforce some of the foundational information. We'll talk a bit more detail about things like tokens than you've done before, perhaps. So there'll be stuff to pick up, but you can go through it quickly and then make the projects your own. So use it as a way to build deeper versions of what we do, and then prepare for harder, fun projects coming up later. If it feels too challenging, then please don't worry. Take your time with the practicals. Take your time with the exercises, work your way through them. There are some extra guides that I'll talk about in week 1 that would help give you a sort of firmer footing if you need it. And please ask for help. I am here. I respond quickly. You can always reach out to me either, as I say, on the platform or through email or through LinkedIn. Details are in the GitHub repo. Reach out to me. Get help. That is what I'm here for. And then if it feels just right, then excellent. Keep going. So the prerequisite is beginner to intermediate level Python. And if you have intermediate level Python, you're going to find it easiest and you'll get the most out of it. And if you look, for example, at this line of code right here, which is just a sort of random line from within a function, if you basically know what that's probably doing, then you're in great shape. If you know exactly what it's doing, and if you know, in fact, why it's not perhaps the most optimal way of doing it, then you're more than well set. You're advanced, and that's great. If you don't know what this does, and you're not familiar with a word like yield or set or the .get, then there is a special notebook, a special Jupyter lab in week 1 for you, which is a guide to Python at this level. And as you go through that notebook, I will take you through each of the stepping stones until we get to a point where a line like this should make sense. And of course, you can also use ChatGPT and Claude. The Gen AIs are really good at explaining code. And indeed, if you put something like this in there, they would tell you exactly what it does and why and step you through it too. And they're probably just as good as my notebook. So either way, that should give you what you need to do. And at any point, if you don't understand some code, you can always use ChatGPT. So to get the most out of this course, there are a few things that I would ask you. First of all, follow along as I do my coding. So when I'm going through in the labs and I'm executing cells, then either at the same time or afterwards, go through and do it yourself. And if you hit snafus, which you might do for various reasons, then have a crack at trying to sort out why. Do some debugging. That's a great way to learn. Complete the exercises and then put your code examples up on GitHub. It's actually a great way as well if you're new to this space and you're trying to build up something of a kind of resume to show that you've built some of this experience. The best kind of resume you can have is a GitHub repo, because people will look at it and will see the sorts of things you've worked on. And of course, you don't want to put exactly the projects we do. You want to make them your own. You want to figure out, okay, how can I apply this to my business area or to a personal project that I'm working on to make it something that's similar, slightly different take on it for new business value. That is a great way to get the most out of this course. And then look to share your code if you're happy with it and you're okay with that. I've got instructions about how you can submit a pull request, which means that I can see your code. I can give you feedback on it if you'd like, and I can also then republish it so that other students taking the course will see your examples and we can all share in it together. And of course, stick at it, hang on in there. This course gets better and better and better, I assure you. And there's going to be so many projects, so much commercial application, and I definitely encourage you to stay the course. And the thing I didn't put down here one more time is that getting the most out of the course, also, please reach out to me if I can help at any point. I'm now going to talk for a bit about models. A term you often hear is the term frontier models, which refers to the LLMs that are pioneering what is possible today, the largest possible models. And often when people say frontier models, they're referring to the closed source models, the paid models like GPT and Claude. Actually, sometimes people also say frontier models when they're referring to the biggest, strongest open source models as well. So depending on the context, it could mean either thing. But let's first talk about the closed source frontier models. And these are also sometimes called the superscalers. They are the largest, highest scale of the models. So first of all, the one that needs no introduction, I'm sure, is GPT from OpenAI. When ChatGPT came out in late 2022, it caught us all off guard with its power. And I'm sure you're familiar with it. Claude from Anthropic. Anthropic is the competitor to OpenAI that's very well known, and Claude is the one that's usually favored by data scientists. But Claude and GPT are often considered neck and neck. Right now in the leaderboards, Claude has the slight edge. Gemini is Google's entrant. You probably remember from when we looked at Ollama that Google also has Gemma, the open source variant as well. And Command R is one that you may or may not have come across from Cohere, a Canadian AI company. And then Perplexity is a search engine which actually can use one of the other models, but also has a model itself. So these are some of the big frontier models. And let's talk about some of the open source models. So Llama, after which Ollama is named. Llama from Meta is, of course, the most famous of the open source models because Meta paved the way in the field of open source LLMs by open sourcing the original Llama 1. There's one called Mistral from French company Mistral, which is a model which is what they call a mixture of experts. It contains multiple smaller models. Qwen is a model that mentioned back when we were playing with Ollama. It is a powerhouse model. It's really super impressive from Alibaba Cloud, and we will use Qwen from time to time because it's as I say, it's very powerful for its size. Gemma, I mentioned, is Google's smaller model, and Phi is Microsoft's smaller open source model. So this is confusing, and it's super important, and it's something which some of you may already know, but it might be something that's been nagging as well at a few of you, and I want to be really clear on this. There are different ways that you can use models that are in completely different approaches, and it's important to understand the differences between them, and when you come across them being used in those different ways, have in your mind what's going on here. So first of all, there are chat interfaces to using models, obviously, like ChatGPT, which is a web front end where you are chatting and you are calling something that's running in the cloud, and the whole process of interacting with the LLM is being handled by OpenAI on their cloud. In the case of ChatGPT, there's also, of course, Claude and Gemini Advanced and others. There are cloud APIs, and this is where, again, you are calling something that's running on the cloud, but you're doing it with code, not through a user interface. And what we did in the Summarization Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab, was calling OpenAI's API. We were connecting to OpenAI, calling their API. And with the chat interfaces, you typically, it's either free for a free tier, or you're paying a monthly subscription fee to use the user interface chat almost as much as you want. There are some limits there. It's different with the APIs. With the APIs, there's no subscription, there's no monthly charge, but rather you pay for every API request you make. If it's a paid API, there are also open source free APIs too. So you can call the APIs directly. There are also libraries like LangChain, which give you a kind of abstraction layer. And you can use LangChain, and then within it, you can call the different APIs, and it presents you with one API that is unified across them. And so there are some of these frameworks like LangChain, and if you see someone using LangChain, it's really just using the LLM API under the covers. It's just giving you a nicer API interface, more consistent on top of it. And then there's another type of API, which is a bit of a different take, which is using something called a managed AI cloud service, which is where you are connecting with a provider like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft Azure, and they are running the models on their cloud, and they're presenting you with a common interface so that you can run behind the scenes. It could be open source, it could be closed source. And you'll hear of Amazon Bedrock, that's Amazon's offering. Google Vertex AI is Google's, and Azure ML, it goes by some other names too, is Microsoft's offering. So these are the managed AI cloud services. But what all of these have in common is that you're writing code locally that then makes a call to an LLM running in the cloud. And that is the Cloud API. And then there's a third approach. And that is when you get the code and the weights for an LLM yourself, and you run it yourself on your box, or potentially by remoting into a remote box. And here, again, there's two different ways that we will be doing it on this course, and it's important to understand the differences between them. One of them is using Hugging Face, where we will be able to get access to like the Python code and the PyTorch code, which has that model in it, and we'll be able to then work in a fairly granular way with that model. We'll be able to use it to do things like tokenize text and then call the model with the tokens, and you'll be actually operating the model. And we'll typically do that using something like Google Colab, where we can be running it on a very high-powered box in the cloud, because typically one's local box isn't powerful enough to run that kind of that level of processing. And as an alternative to that, people have taken this code and they've optimized it into high-performance C++ code and compiled it so that you can run it locally on your box. And that is what Ollama is. It uses something called Llama CPP behind the scenes as the C++ code. Now, that means that you can run it locally. You're running the models in inference and execution mode on your box, but you don't have as much ability to control what's going on because it's just fully compiled code. So that gives you hopefully some insight. I'm glossing over some of the details, but hopefully shows you the landscape of the three different ways that you can work with models, and then some of the sort of sub techniques under that. With all of that, what are we going to do now? We're going to do an exercise, and it's going to be a useful exercise and one that you'll be able to continue using throughout the course, because it's going to involve Ollama. Without further ado, I'm going to flip over to Jupyter Lab to explain the exercise. I'm excited to introduce you to your first exercise, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you make of this. As a reminder, you should have gone to your Anaconda prompt if you're on a PC, or your terminal window if you're on a Mac. You should have gone to the project root directory, LLM Engineering, activated Anaconda by doing conda activate LLMs, or the virtual env equivalent if you're using that, and then typed Jupyter Lab to bring up your Jupyter Lab. And in the file browser on the left, you should see the weeks like this, or you might be already in the week 1 folder, in which case it will look something like this. And I now want you to go to the day 2 exercise notebook, which will come up like this. And here is the plan. What we're going to do is we're going to see how to call Ollama from code. So we're going to use Python code to call the Ollama model that's running on your computer. And what we're then going to do, and once I'll first set that up, so we'll get that to work and you'll be able to see Ollama results. And the exercise for you will be to then update the summarization project that we completed yesterday and use Ollama, use your local model instead of the call to OpenAI. And if you didn't sign up for the OpenAI API, then this is your chance to do it for the first time. So first of all, I explain here that we will be using Ollama. The benefits of using Ollama, of course, is that there's no API charges. It's open source. It's running on your box. It's free. Another benefit is that the data will never leave your box. So if you're ever working on something where there is confidential data that absolutely must not go to the cloud, then of course, this gives you techniques to be working locally without data leaving the internet. The disadvantage is that obviously the frontier models, they are many, many times larger and more powerful than the open source models. And so we should expect that the results won't be as strong. But you know, that's what you pay for when you pay your fraction of a cent each call. First of all, a recap that you hopefully already installed Ollama by going to ollama.com. And you remember, it's just a matter of pressing that download button and you're off to the races. If you've done that, then if you visit this link here, localhost 11434, then you should see this Ollama is running message, which tells you that it's running. If that doesn't show, then bring up a terminal or a PowerShell and just enter Ollama serve, and it should then be running. And if you go there, you should see again, Ollama is running. So with that, if that doesn't happen, then try and do a little bit of debugging and research and then contact me and I'll help. All right, so I'm going to do a few imports. Now I'm going to set some constants. This here is a URL on my local box on this port, which is, you see the port that Ollama runs on, /API/chat. I'm going to have also a constant called model, which will be Llama 3.2. Now, this here, this messages, hopefully you will recognize this construct because this is the same construct as the messages. Let me lay it out a bit differently for you. This is the same as the messages that we talked about before that we use with OpenAI. Messages is a list of dictionaries. The dictionaries, each dictionary has a key of role, and the value is either user or system, and a key of content, and the value is the user message or the system message. So this very simply is saying, I want to have a user prompt that says, describe some of the business applications of generative AI. Let's run that. I'm now going to put that into a JSON object called a payload, which specifies the model, the messages, and I don't want it to stream results. I just want to get back the results. And I'm then going to use the Python package requests to post that request to this URL, pass in the JSON, and then what I get back, I'm going to take the JSON, look in the message.content fields, and we'll see what happens when we make that call. So right now, of course, it's making a web request locally from my box to my box, and it's connecting to the Llama 3.2 model that's being served by Ollama. And this is the result. And I will tell you that the answers that it gives are really good, so that since we are trying to learn about commercial applications, it would do you no harm to read through some of its responses and see if there's anything that interests you. Now, I wanted to show you that because I wanted to explain exactly what's going on behind the covers, and that we're making these, basically these URL, these web requests to our local box. But in fact, the friendly people at Ollama have built a Python package which makes this even simpler. So you can just do this in one line. So I could have started with this, but I wanted to show you these steps to making the web request so you have a good intuition for what's actually happening. But there is this nice package Ollama that you can just import, and then you can say ollama.chat, pass in the model, pass in the messages, and then just take back the response content. And if I run that, we should hopefully see that we will get basically the same thing. And here we go, there it is. And I imagine, yeah, I can already see that there are differences between them, of course. It's somewhat unique each time. This one looks like a longer response. Okay, that's the end of my teeing up. Now it's over to you. So you'll remember in day one, we built this solution where we built something that would summarize a website, and we made a call to OpenAI to achieve that. Here, in fact, is our call to OpenAI right here. The challenge for you is to keep going with this day 2 exercise lab and add in that same summarizer code so that you can build a website summarizer that uses your local Ollama open source model, Llama 3.2, or a different model if you wish, to do your summarization. That's the exercise. The solution is in the solutions folder should you need it, but I think you've got this one. And I will see you for the next video when you have that done. And already that wraps up day 2. Now that you have built that solution, and congratulations on that. And I would love to see it, by the way, if you want to share it. You've got some experience with summarization, both with OpenAI and with Ollama. Next time, we're going to have some fun with frontier models. We're going to look at 6 of them. You're going to get sleeves rolled up, hands-on experience with them so that we get a good sense, a good intuition to the differences between them. We're going to use some of the latest and greatest versions, and we're also going to see some areas where they struggle. So looking forward to that. I will see you then.